Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Spill Street Podcast episode. I am your host, Michael Spill. If you don't know by now, this is the hottest podcast on earth for entrepreneurs and creative professionals. Today is going to be a very special topic, ladies and gentlemen, because we're about to really help y'all plant the seed for your financial future. Right now, there's over 45% of Americans today with less than $1,000 in the bank for living expenses and or emergencies. We may not have control over costs, taxes, or interest rates, but we do have control over our financial destiny. And I believe that starts with mindset. So today we're going to be talking about the psychology of money with one of the top money legacy life coaches in Atlanta today. Without further ado, my brother from another mother, Mr. Dre Parker. How you doing today, bro?
What's going on? How you feeling, brother?
I'm feeling good, man. How about you?
I'm always feeling good when we're talking about the psychology of money, you know?
Yeah, man. So I've been wanting to have this conversation, for a minute since I first met you, man. I remember when I first met you, you said, I teach people about the psychology of money, and I
Yeah.
think I came to you to get advice on how I can help more of my real estate clients find ways to get money for housing. And when you
Right.
said that to me, I said, damn, so I need to be teaching my clients about how to have a relationship with money first before luring them into a potential home investment. The other investment may or may not work for them. So I want to ask you, man, like just to pop this whole thing off so the people on my platform who may not be familiar with you, just so they get a little bit, more insight on your background. How did you get your start in the money game? And what inspired you to help people achieve financial success?
Man, so it started off with me growing up a place called Middletown, Connecticut. I grew up to a single mom in the projects, oldest of four. Started working for money at 13 because I was taught this is what you do. You got to work for money.
Right.
So then I met an entrepreneur about the age of 20, 21. I got into entrepreneurship. The age of 22, back in 1995, I know I'm dating myself, but 1995, I opened up my first brick and mortar clothing store. Now, the way that I thought about money was totally different. So I didn't have any financial or business acumen. I would make $3 to $5 grand a week. So I unconsciously created a 6-figure business, but I'm out of business in 2 years because topic that I now teach on. So fast forward, moved down to Atlanta, been here for about 27 years, met my lovely wife down here. And I've made money in different industries and doing different things, but I realized that so many of us focus on working for money. And the thing that really stops us really from growing, bro, is really our emotional intelligence over money, because that stops us from in a certain way. And we're going to dive deep into that. So yeah, so that's what inspired me, my own life scenario. And I kept meeting people who made lots of money, and literally their fear of money was still as high, even though they had enough money. So I thought about it. I said, it's our financial DNA that we really got to change. So that's what really got me into it from my own personal experience.
I love it, man. I love it. I speak to a lot of old heads sometimes, like from
I'm an old head.
well, not, but you seem like millennial though. Like I don't know your exact age, but you seem like
I'm 52.
you seem like yeah, you seem like you say you be how old?
52.
Oh, damn, bro! I thought you was like 40. Okay, all right. So let me say this: when I speak to a lot of brothers, in their mid 60s, early 70s, who come from like the real grassroots, of having to, do work with their hands, and find strategic ways to make money when they didn't have a lot of opportunity. They always use the term game. You know what I'm saying? Young blood, you got to have you some game, and to me, I like to break everything down in acronyms, to help bring more of an urgency to use that tool. And when I think about game, to me, it's growth applied means elevation. So that's how I like to use it. And it seems like you've been using some form of game in your own way for it to work with you unconsciously, man. So like I want to ask you before we dive deep into the topic, when we look at the psychology of money, of course it has to be game involved. But before we dive deep into it, what does the psychology of money generally mean to you?
So psychology of money, like I said, it goes back to your financial DNA, like the blueprint, your money program. right? So like you said, the old cats, they put you on game, grassroots. Well, if we really look at it, especially those who want to build wealth, it's going to have to do with everything with your emotional intelligence or the psychology of money. Because if your psychology of money and your program says, I got to work for money, then it's going to be very hard to work your way to wealth. You follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So the game that we've been given is hustling backwards.
Yeah. Right.
Like working for money. Wealthy people don't work for money.
That's true, man. Like I say all the time, I look at, I'm not going to say I have a lot of friends in high places, but like I've been around people who know other people in high places. And
Right.
these dudes, they making over $250,000 a year, if not more. And they probably work less than 4 hours a week,
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, like what do they know that
Right.
we don't know? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Now, based on what you said, how do you feel the lack of money psychology can influence people's decisions when it comes to investing?
So the biggest thing people have to have or get is self-awareness, right? So understanding how you feel, how you think about money has everything to do with investing or not investing for most of us. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. Like if your money program was taught to, put your money in the bank because it's safe, because grandma lost all her money in the market, well, you're going to have to realize that your financial DNA needs to be upgraded because it's a program that you've gotten from your grandma. Or like, as we dive deep into some of these more questions, you're going to be like, well, who taught me about money? Like, how did I learn money? Right? Because a lot of times we just get the information from our parents and our grandparents and our environment that teaches us a certain level of psychology of money. So it's almost like, we're operating like a 3 to 5 year old when it comes to our money program.
Right.
And that's a big challenge because once you start learning, like once I really started learning money, bro, I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to unlearn all the crap that I've learned so I can relearn how to really, really master the money game.
Wow, man. You said something big too. Like, I think unlearning and relearning is one of the
Yeah.
biggest things that most people struggle with when it comes to, taking on a new journey of, financial success. Because a lot of people, or at least when you look at psychology, since we talk about the psychology of money, a lot of people fear change for some reason. Like, change is hard for many different individuals. And I want to ask you, right, for the people who have been investing or so-called investing, but they're struggling, they're having a hard time, whether they're taking advice from someone or not, what are some common misconceptions that you've been seeing, as a financial expert throughout the years that lead people to making poor investment decisions?
Right. So think about it. Like when I'm talking to my clients, I'm always asking, what's the reason for this investment? What's the reason? Why are you doing this? Right.
Right.
And first of all, especially this is why I get into conversations with people like, well, I want to get into real estate because I heard you can make a lot of money in real estate. I say, okay, great. All right. So what have you learned about real estate? See, a lot of times we jump into things because we see the outcome from somebody else's life.
Right.
But there's two sides of the coin. Like they see, oh, the end result is I've invested in real estate, I've invested in the market, and I have a certain lifestyle that you want to have, but they don't see the flip side of that coin where it took losses. Like me and my brother Hakeem was talking the other day. It's like if you haven't lost in real estate or in investing, then you really don't have a badge of honor. Like most people are playing not. They think about it. You really think about it. Most people aren't really playing to win. They're really playing to not lose. And that's what's causing their fear. They're like, oh, I don't want to lose money in the market, or I don't want to lose money in a real estate deal. And honestly, bro, that will cause them to not even take action.
Dang, that's deep that you said that, bro. Like most people are playing to win, not playing to lose. If you said it like that,
Right.
Because
So
it's a lot coming to my head, right?
They're not playing to win; they're playing not to lose.
Yeah, they're playing. Okay, they're playing not to lose, and that's crazy, bro. Because that's going to bring us into the next topic: risk tolerance and financial security. But you know, my mom said something similar to me, man, like maybe almost 6, 7 years ago, when, you know, I was really, 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 really young, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, thinking, you know, I'm gonna get some shit overnight or whatever. She used to be like,
Right.
Michael, you can't start from the top and get to the top. You
Hold up.
know,
She didn't hit you with the Michael.
no, no, no.
Michael.
She hit me with it. She said, no, she always called me Michael. She said, Michael, you can't start from the top and get to the top. You know, and it really didn't hit me, you know, until like I would say maybe 3 years ago. And I was like, damn, like she right.
Right.
You know, I gotta start from somewhere and I gotta embrace trial and error, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
just stick with something. So it's similar to what you saying, you know, like damn, like it all ties in. Now, when we talk about somebody getting into, when we talk about the average person that's like not wanting to take no loss, they feel like everything got to be 100% peachy and cream. Then we look
Right.
at the individual who's learned their lesson, you know, and say, you know what, I understand it's going to be risk, you know, but I'm still a little bit scared. How can individuals determine risk tolerance with investing when it comes to where they're financially at?
Okay, perfect. So, as a professional, a licensed professional,
Mm-hmm.
before I put people in any type of investments that I work with,
Mm-hmm.
I always have a series of questions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And depending on how you answer these questions will depend on what type of risk tolerance you have. So I always ask the question, if you were to invest $100,000 in a declining market, how much would you tolerate on your account value going down? Could you tolerate 10,000?
Right.
Could you tolerate 20,000? Could you tolerate 30,000? And by the way that they answer that lets me know, first of all, if they really understand what the market really is, right?
Right.
Because a lot of times people, they hear people making money and that market is average 10%, but they don't want to talk about what the market actually does. It goes up, it goes down, and it kind of
Mm-hmm.
moves sideways, right? And
Mm-hmm.
depending on when you get into it, right? Depending on when you get into the market, it could be a declining market. But
Mm-hmm.
here's the key that I tell people. If you got a time horizon of 10, 15, 20, 30 years and you get in a declining year, why would you end up trying to sell your portfolio when you got a 10-year time horizon? Because you will take a loss if you, and most people, let's think about it. Most people don't buy low and sell high. They do the complete opposite because of
Mm-hmm.
fear and greed. So depending on how you answer these questions will let me know. And I always tell people, like, if because you're going to fit into one of five categories. You're going to be conservative as an investor, right? You're going to be moderate. You're going to be balanced. You're going to be a growth investor, or you're going to be an aggressive investor. So, and that's all depending on like if you really understand what the market does.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times, like people, they'll spend money and get a certain amount of shares, and the shares lose value, and then like, oh, I lost money. I'm like, no, it's not a realized gain until you actually decide to sell. And like, why are you concerned anyway? You're not selling anyway. You didn't lose any shares. So
Right.
it's really the education. Like I really got to educate people. But brother, I'm finding I mostly have to coach them on the emotional side of what investing really is.
I can see that, man. So you talking about investing, right? And it's making me think about like stocks, bonds, and you know, whole like the original investments that you know we that most people learn from the home first, right? So like I
Right.
want to ask you this. In these days, we have so many different things to invest into. So it seems like people, or at least, you know, people close to my era, you know, kind of, you know, go for what's more popular. So I want to ask you, would you say there's more security than risk when it comes to investing in financial products like stocks, bonds, or whole life?
Okay. So I'm glad you mentioned that because certain levels of different asset classes are
Mm-hmm.
riskier than others. Like we all
Mm-hmm.
know that
Mm-hmm.
stocks are more riskier than bonds in general, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely.
Obviously, but there are risks when putting new money into bonds, right?
Mm-hmm.
People have to understand this. There is risk in everything, even putting your money under a mattress,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right. Well,
There's risk
yeah.
putting your money in the bank
Yeah.
because if inflation, you have inflation risk, right? If you're putting your money in the bank because it's safe and that's what grandma told you to do because she lost her money in the market, well, in 20, 30 years, you're going to be like, well, damn, this money ain't buying the same amount of products because you're
Right.
getting less than 1% and inflation is average. Now, we know it's crazy high now, but it's averaged 3-4%. So if you're averaging inflation at 3 or 4% and getting 0.08%, the cost of goods are going to go up, and that's your risk. You follow what I'm saying? So yeah, so I believe, and I think we're going to get to this, I believe in diversification, or knowing the job that you have for your money, because we know that real estate is less volatile than the stock market.
Yeah.
That's why people like it, right?
Right.
But how many people have you known lost their shirt when it comes to real estate?
A lot, man. Like, just
because there's no such thing as one. Think
Yeah.
about it. There's no such thing as one perfect product for everyone. If so, financial professionals wouldn't be in business.
That's damn. You just made a perfect point. And it's funny too that you said like it's even risk into putting money under your mattress. You took me down memory lane, man. Like back when I was like maybe 19, 20 years old at the time, you know, just getting cash money or whatever from just kicking it with my homies or whatever. Like I would put my money in my shoebox, you know, and my mama used my mama used to get on to me about that shit. She used to be like, Michael. Nah, right. She hit me every time. Michael.
That's wisdom coming out there.
Right, exactly. But she gave me this article, right? Every time my mom would read like an article like on like Yahoo or something, like when I wouldn't listen to her, she's like, okay, I'm gonna give you this article, nigga. And then I bet you listen. Man, she showed me an article of this woman who was putting all her savings under her bed, under her mattress, right? And she saved up about $200,000, literally cash, under her mattress. One day, somebody broke in her home, stole the money, and I think and when she reported it, I think she only got reimbursed like $1,000. You can correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you got knowledge on this. If you have insurance on physical cash, how much do most insurance companies reimburse you for that cash? Is it like?
I want you to think about this, right? So people are afraid of the banks, right?
Right.
But the banks, FDIC is insurance, right? Right. Up to $250,000. And that's good. Like I tell people, have different bank accounts, right? But a lot of people, because we know this, banks go under, right?
Yeah.
We know this. This is why when you look at the bank's portfolio or their ledger, they put a bulk of their money into life insurance because it's a more secure asset. Because here's the difference. Banks only have to have 1/10 of what they lend out, right? So if they got think about it. If they got 100,000 in there. I mean, if they lend out 100,000, they only need to have like $10,000 to lend out 100,000. But the difference with insurance companies is they have to have billions and billions in reserves. So financial stability, when you look at the three entities, right? The banks, then you got the insurance companies, then you got broker dealers. Well, the insurance companies are more secure when it comes to financial stability because they got to have billions in reserves. And there's a such thing called reinsurance. They got to invest in reinsurance in case they decide to go insolvent and go under. So if you're scared of the banks, and put your money where the banks put their money, right? Or have some of your money over here. It's not about having all your money in one place, just have it in different places because things happen, right?
Okay, you saying that, right? Now, I don't know if this article is true or not. Y'all, please correct me if this was a false article in the comments. But I believe there was an article recently where Bank of America, most people woke up with $0 in their account from Bank of America. Like, is that something that's common? Like, was that a glitch?
Like, if a bank goes under, right? There's a process that has to take place.
Right.
There's a process of and that's why it's like, okay, it's good to have your money in different places because if all my money, especially if you got more than $250,000, is in one bank and one account, if that bank goes under, you need access to the money. That's why, for instance, if you have your money, some of your money in cash value life insurance, right? You have that, you can have that, you can get that money.
Right.
But at the end of the day, man, it's going to be risk. Since we're talking about risk, it's going to be risk. So most people, and it's so funny because people say, well, we're going to buy gold. We're going to have physical gold. We're going to have silver, right?
Right.
Well, go back to 1933, 1934, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a time when it was a crisis, right? And the government demanded that everybody that had gold turn it in,
Right.
right? Because of the crash and everything that happened.
Uh-huh.
So all I'm saying is, like, there's different variables of things that could happen in life, right?
Yeah.
But the best thing you do is mitigate the risk. But the most important thing you got to do is upgrade your psychology and your emotions around money, knowing that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. Because,
Absolutely.
you know, think about it, bro. People talk about the fear of the dollar and stuff like that. Well, okay, if they get rid of the dollar, what's the next currency? Okay, we're going to be okay no matter what. I firmly believe that no matter what. So pumping fear into the minds of the people, like, oh, don't put your money, the dollar is going to go away and all this other stuff, or put gold. Like, we see what happened in 1933, 34 when it came to gold. So all I'm saying is knowing that we are going to be good no matter what. I don't like to pump fear into people.
Right. Absolutely. I'm gonna touch on that fear thing a little bit, man. Like, I got like a love-hate relationship when it comes to fear. I'm gonna get you. I need some advice from you on it later on. But man, I was looking at your TikTok not too long ago, and you was talking about, like, I can't remember the specific thing you were exactly talking about because it was a short clip. But like, I remember what stuck with me was you said cash is king. What does that mean, or what did you mean when you say cash is king, and when does that apply?
Okay, yeah, because we hear that all the time, right? So you got the ace, right? Ace is cash flow.
Okay.
Right? You got the king, which is cash on hand.
Okay.
And then you got the queen, which is debt or leverage. And I always tell people, you got to play those three cards right, or you're going to jack up your hand.
Okay.
Right? So cash is king. Like, a lot of times you got to use those three cards to your advantage. If you don't have the ace, which is cash flow coming in, the king has to be prevalent. It has to be, because if, like, for instance, if you run a business and all of a sudden sales go down and you start losing revenue and cash flow coming in, well, what's going to save your empire? The king. The king is going to save your empire. Cash on hand keeps you in business longer. Like what happened with COVID, a lot of people ended up not having enough cash on hand, and those businesses or restaurants went out of business. Now, the queen is very important, right? So now I'm not talking about consumer debt, but the queen, which you still have to manage consumer debt, but you have to manage also good debt, which is leverage, right? A lot of people don't understand that in order to really build wealth, most people use the queen, which is leverage, to build wealth, other people's money. Because at the end of the day, that's what the wealth of America was built on: other people's money, other people's labor. We know that because of who we are,
Right?
Slave labor. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, like, those three cards, the ace, the king, and the queen, you gotta play those hands correctly. Because if you just have cash on hand, guess what's gonna happen? If you don't got the ace, eventually that cash on hand is you're gonna be out of money. Because you gotta, like, I talk to people like, hey, I got 300,000, but I have no income coming in. Well, we'll see how long that 300,000 lasts.
Yeah, man. Right. Damn, and you right too, because like so many different businesses who we look at as empires was closing during COVID. I think Neiman Marcus even closed like at a point in time during the crisis, during the 2020 COVID crisis. So damn, I could definitely see that. So speaking of, when it comes to like crisis, or if it comes to, like a big change in someone's life that they're like super passionate about. Because when we look at the psychology of money, like, I feel like a lot of things that people spend, are based off of like, the emotions of whatever's going on, so like, I want to ask you, how secure should someone's investments be before they consider making large purchases like a home, a wedding, or just being prepared for another 2020 COVID?
Okay, this falls into play with what you do.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we get into this next episode, I just have a brief announcement. If you've been enjoying the content that we've been creating here on the Spill Street platform and you want to support the Spill Street podcast, you can do so by doing three things: liking this video, subscribing to the YouTube channel, and following us on Spotify. Also, if you live in Atlanta, if you are an Atlanta, Georgia resident, or if you live in Georgia in general, doesn't really matter where you are, and you are interested in purchasing a property and you want me, Michael Spill, to be your realtor, go ahead and click the new buyers and sellers link that is in the description below. When you click that new buyers and sellers link, all you have to do is leave your email and your phone number. When you do that, I myself will be contacting you ASAP, immediately. If I don't contact you, someone from my team will be contacting you, but we'll most definitely get you situated. If you are a first-time home buyer, you can click on the buyer's questionnaire and fill out the buyer's questionnaire link. That way I'll know all the details to your dreams, goals, and desires as it relates to home ownership. I want to thank y'all for your support, business, and patience. And until next time, always remember to spread positivity, information, love, and light. Enjoy the show.
1 out of 4 homeowners in America are house poor.
Right.
1 out of 4. So what does that mean? Hey, let's just get enough money to get the down payment on the house and get the house. Okay, well, guess what's going to happen if you don't have the foundation? The foundation is very important when it comes to your money, right? So before you make a major purchase, you look at your whole financial landscape. That's very important. So if you have it, like a lot of times people say, well, I got just enough money to do this. Well, guess what? That expense is going to keep coming in month after month, year after year. So you got to make sure, like when you're putting money towards major purchases, you got your financial foundation straight, which is savings, right? Long-term and short-term savings. Short-term savings for emergencies, long-term for opportunity. I see so many people just, they're like, hey, I'm just tunnel vision. I want this one thing. And then they get that one thing, whether it's the house or the wedding. And then next thing you know, they're like, all their reserves or liquidity is depleted. So when I believe that you got to learn how to divide your money up and give your money a job. Because if you don't give your money a job, somebody else is going to employ it, have it working for them. So when I'm working with clients, I'm like, okay, let's organize your money. Like let's literally, and when I was on the Porsche show, I'm like, hey, let's put this money for travel in this account. Let's put money for emergencies in this account. What happens with a lot of people is they just got like all their money in one account. And that's the worst way you can manage money, is having everything coming out of that one account. So just when you're going after major purchases, take a look into the future and saying, how can I, especially a home, how do I get this home and not be house poor like 1 out of 4 Americans?
Right. That's definitely something, that I encourage people, even as a realtor. Like I encourage people, don't put yourself in a position to where you're house poor. That is why majority of the time I work with investors. Okay. Just a disclaimer. But I always hear, have, based on what you said, another thing I always hear from a lot of financial experts is, and I'm asking you this question because it don't always seem that realistic to me for the average individual, right? Have 3 to 6 months of living expenses put away at all times. And I'm not knocking that. I believe in that. But based on what you're saying, like how can you, as you're putting away these 3 to 6 months of living expenses, is it wise to just have that money sit? Or do you recommend, taking 3 to 6 months of making that money work in a stock, bond, or a whole life account? Like, how would you go about that 3 to 6 months of living expenses? You get what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, a lot of people that I deal with, they'll do high yield savings accounts.
Okay.
But when they start getting over, and this is the thing that it's a fear thing, right? When they start getting a year and a half in the bank, I'm like, in a savings account, I'm like, what's the purpose of all this money sitting there? And what some of my clients will say? Security.
See,
it's really
you answer my point. You answer my point. Okay, cool.
Really fear, security of knowing that it's there, and I could do my bank account balance, and I can look in and log in and see it's there. And guess what? Your money's really not even there. And like it might look like that when you log in, but the banks don't keep the money there. As soon as it comes in, they loan it out.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of ones and zeros. But yeah, the biggest thing is saying, like, when I see this all the time, I'm like, why do you have 150 grand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And literally 50 grand can take care of 7-8 months of expenses. I'm like, let's, and I like to work with clients to say, hey, how do you feel if we put 6 months or keep 6 to 7 months in the bank and we take this other money? And if you feel like you need the bank still, have a high yield savings account. Don't keep it in a less than 1% interest rate environment,
Mm-hmm.
or let's put it into a conservative portfolio, because the reason why I say that is more bonds or just a conservative portfolio that doesn't fluctuate, because you do not want to have something that you might need access to within a year in high volatility. You don't want that. Or more importantly,
Mm-hmm.
this is a beautiful thing. What about putting it into a life insurance environment, into a cash value environment? That becomes even better, because life insurance is a tier 1 asset. And that means that it's creditor safe from creditors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't give legal advice, so check with your attorney, right? It's safe from Uncle Sam. If you're doing it right, you don't have to pay taxes on that money. It has a high level of liquidity, which is very powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have market volatility like you do in the stock market, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the beautiful thing is it has a tax-free death component. So that's the beauty of, that's why a lot of wealthy people will use, like, instead of keeping $200,000 in a savings
Right.
account, getting 1%, they might do what we call an infinite banking concept,
Mm-hmm.
right? And put it into like a dividend paying whole life
Mm-hmm.
product.
Mm-hmm.
And believe me, not for everyone, right? This is, there's a reason why they might, like I said, the money's in a bank. Okay, it's not safe from creditors, right?
Mm-hmm.
So putting it into this life insurance environment, especially, like, we can get really sophisticated, and I'm not going to go deep on that. That could be a whole nother podcast, but you can get really sophisticated, especially if you're borrowing money from this policy at 4%, 5%,
Mm-hmm.
and you're using it to leverage, something else. Like, because think about it, like that could be very powerful, because at the end of the day, it's about positive arbitrage for you. Like, if I borrow at 4% and I'm making 10% somewhere else, that's a beautiful scenario. It's positive spreads on my money.
Okay, I like that, man. We may have to do another podcast like on like whole life and life insurance, because but I always, been, I won't say told, but like somewhat insinuated that whole life is for the rich. It's for people who got a lot of money to just put away, and just let sit. So I want to ask you, for the many people watching who may be struggling with finances, could you start investing in a whole life policy, even if you're making between 35 to 40K a year?
If you're in the right scenario, and if it's
Mm-hmm.
right for your long-term objective.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I always like to clear the air with this. Any financial or licensed professional that tells you that term is better,
Mm-hmm.
or whole life is better, or index universal life is
Mm-hmm.
better than anything else, without knowing your situation, that's a red flag. It's seriously a red flag,
Mm-hmm.
because I've trained other financial professionals on
Mm-hmm.
buying term and invest the difference. Now, is term a great product? It
Mm-hmm.
absolutely is, for the right situation and right what we're trying to structure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is getting a term policy with an index universal life policy or a whole life policy good? Yeah, depending on what we're trying to accomplish. See, a lot of people are bought into the psychology and the philosophy of what they were taught as a financial professional.
Right.
I actually do life insurance strategies, because there's a place for term, there's a place for dividend paying whole life, there's a
Mm-hmm.
place for IULs. Is it for any and everybody? Absolutely not. But I'll give you a scenario. If somebody is looking for a long-term strategy play on legacy, and they
Mm-hmm.
want, because I'm gonna be honest with you,
Mm-hmm.
most people come to me in their 50s, and their term has expired, and now because they got grandkids, they're looking to have life insurance as a component of
Right.
legacy transfer, along with stocks, bonds, and real estate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the best time to get permanent life insurance, if that's going to be your play,
Mm-hmm.
is right now. And people say, well, what's right now? Because you're the youngest you're going to ever be right now. That part. You know what I'm saying? Instead of waiting, because a lot of times people get and believe me, do you need term? Absolutely. Term is great for income replacement or even living benefits. Because I want you to think about it. If you got a mortgage of 300,000-400,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you got a 5-year-old kid, and you got a spouse that needs your income, and you make 100,000 a year, getting a $50,000 or even a $25,000 or $100,000 IUL is not going to be enough insurance for you.
Mm-hmm.
So working with a professional is like, hey, every year, let's look at your situation and see if you're ready for, bigger and better things when it comes to life insurance strategies.
That's interesting that you say that, man. We almost can talk about this all day because now you triggering something that came to me at a time when I was selling life insurance, like I would say maybe about 6, 7 years ago. But I remember literally like most people, at least young people who I was trying to sell it to because it was so affordable. Like you talking like less than $20. They wouldn't want to get it. And their biggest thing is they didn't say this, but based on conversation, like psychologically, I was able to pick up on this. They don't feel that there are any living benefits when it comes to it. And at the time, I was trying to convince people, like, hey, you could use this, for mortgage protection as well. So, would you say there's like more living expenses than non-living expenses when it comes to life insurance?
Right. So with life insurance, and I get it. So, and here's the part. This is why TikTok has blown up with
Mm-hmm.
infinite banking and be your own bank, right? Because now people see life insurance, which is nothing new. They see it as, oh, this is an asset that I
Mm-hmm.
can have. I could buy it, I could borrow from it, and then I can die and pass it on.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest thing is we talking about psychology of money.
Right.
And within our community, you got to think about our money program and even life insurance program. Most people, like great grandmother, was like, "Hey, we got a burial policy, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we get generational wealth if when we die we just have enough to bury us? We've never accumulated any real estate over our lifetime. We never build up a stock or bond portfolio, and we had a final expense. So people, when you're selling life insurance, and it depends on what market you're in,
Mm-hmm.
and the mindset of people is a consumer mindset,
Mm-hmm.
then those people will typically never build wealth
Mm-hmm.
because it's their psychology behind the money,
Right.
and they consumer base. They're thinking less expensive, right? They're not thinking about
Right.
the value that something can give you, right?
Right.
If you
Right.
have a producer's mindset, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
thinking wealth, right? You start thinking, okay, how do I get my permanent insurance because I plan on living a long time, right? And I plan on using it
Mm-hmm.
as leverage and things like that. And when I pass it down, I'm going to pass it down tax free, and I'm also going to live like depends on who sets it up and how it's
Mm-hmm.
designed. You design policies where literally people can pull. Like I'm working with a 24-year-old right now,
Mm-hmm.
and the way that we have it structured is by the time she's 65, she's going to be able to pull 103,000 tax free for the
Mm.
rest of her life. Yep.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you talking about this 24-year-old, right? You also
Yeah.
said today is the youngest you ever gonna be. So it brings me into the next segment, timing and
Right.
investments. So I want to ask you, what role does timing play in the psychology of investing, and how can people, avoid making impulsive decisions based on market trends that may not be best for them?
Oh, I love this part.
Okay.
I love it. You know why? Because remember I said you can be investing in a declining market year because no one
Yeah.
can time the market. No one
Mm-hmm.
can time the market.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about timing the market, it's your time in the market that's most important.
Mm-hmm.
So when you got 20 years, 30 years before you actually need access to that money, it's very important that you have the
Mm-hmm.
objective of putting it into particular environments where you got opportunity for growth. Like it's an opportunity cost when you got 30 years of needing this money, especially if we're talking about retirement. And
Mm-hmm.
next thing you know, you're like, you got a conservative fund, like or a government fund that's getting 3, 4%. And you got 30 years before you need the money. Oh, that's bad. It's called opportunity cost.
Mm-hmm.
You could have put your money in an environment making 10% instead of 3 or 4%.
Mm-hmm.
So timing has everything to do with your investment portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
And most important thing I want people to understand is when you're, especially since we're talking about like needing a retirement, if you're in the
Mm-hmm.
red zone of retirement, you don't keep your money without having a defensive strategy.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is if you're like, and I've seen it firsthand, people go out for their finances alone. I end up getting a new client in 2021. So I'm going to share the scenario without sharing any names.
Mm-hmm.
So this person had, $300,000-$400,000 in her portfolio,
Mm-hmm.
right? 2020 happened, market decline over 30%. She lost about close to 80,000.
Mm-hmm.
She panicked, moved her money out of the growth portfolio into a conservative portfolio. When 2020 ended up being a pretty good year,
Mm-hmm.
the market bounced back. But the fear, so she actually lost, right? She
Right.
lost almost a year of her retirement income.
Mm.
If I had known, if she would have had a professional and she would say, hey, I think about retiring next year or the year after,
Mm-hmm.
we would have already adjusted her portfolfolio. So a lot of times when
Mm-hmm.
people they do this, they set up this 401k or whatever they set up for their investment for retirement.
Right.
Next thing you know, they said it 20 years ago, and then they're getting close to retirement. They're like, yeah, but there's a thing called the sequence of returns, right?
Right.
So what if you decide to retire next year or the year after, or the year after, and it's a sequence of returns of a down market? You
Mm-hmm.
might have messed up 3 or 4 years of your distribution.
Mm.
Very
Damn.
important. See, people don't think about that part. Sequence of returns.
Okay. No, I'm gonna get back with you on that sequence of returns in private at the end of the show for sure. But one thing that's really striking me right now when we dealing with the psychology of money is emotions like fear, and like I told you earlier, I need your advice on this one, right?
All right.
And
Okay.
hopefully the people watching can take something from it too. I
Mm-hmm.
personally just on my journey of just achieving goals in general. There's been times where fear has kept me from achieving something, and there's
Right.
times where fear has drove me to achieving something because of not necessarily fear of what I was going for, but fear of what I was running from.
Right.
So like I want to ask you, do you think emotions, when it comes to the psychology of money now, do you think emotions like fear and greed can have a positive impact when it comes to making investment decisions, especially when we're talking about timing?
All right. Does fear and greed have a positive impact on your investments?
Fear
That's the question.
and or greed.
And or greed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always going to tell you this.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Okay.
no, no. The reason why, I'm going to break it
Mm-hmm.
down. We're put into this society to say, let fear drive your ambition, right? To
Right.
be the best you can be.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the challenge with that. Fear is a lower vibrational frequency, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is why people who make massive amount of money still feel like they're not wealthy, right?
Right.
Still feel a void,
Mm-hmm.
still don't have the fulfillment that they want because they're driven by fear, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
a difference between running away from something and running towards something. Instead
Mm-hmm.
of running away from poverty, learn how to run towards wealth. That's more positive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when fear drives all your decision making, when you have a million, when you have 10 million, whether you have 100 million, you'll never have the fulfillment. There'll always be an empty void because you're running away from something, right?
Right.
So fear will never have a positive because it's a negative emotion. Now, is there a place for fear? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
As human beings, do we experience fear? Yes. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're not learning the wisdom in the emotion, then that's going to be the challenge. Emotions give you the reason why you experience them. For one, is energy and motion, and two, you have to learn from the emotion that you're feeling. Fear can indicate maybe I need to watch out for something. Anger could indicate maybe I need to set some boundaries in my investment decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't we don't pay attention to the wisdom in feelings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially as men. Like we're
Right.
like,
Right. Right.
you're not paying, like sadness when you're losing that money or you feel like you lost the money,
Mm-hmm.
it's a feeling of loss, right?
Right.
So what lesson do you need to learn? Because ultimately, everything that we do in life is for a feeling. Like most of us chase happiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're led by fear, how could you ever get to a place called happiness? Because you're driven by fear. No matter how much money you amass and wealth you amass, you'll meet people that say, I'll feel wealthy when I get a private jet. Then they get the private jet, right? Then I say,
Mm-hmm.
well, so-and-so got a bigger private jet in the island. I'll be happy
Yeah.
when I get. So the name of the game is fulfillment in everything you're doing. Be happy as a dollar heir, a
Mm-hmm.
thousandaire, a millionaire, or a billionaire. Because at the end of the day, it's about fulfillment in your journey.
Right. Damn, that's right, man. And I hear that from many different places, especially from a lot of like wealthy people who go into like these crazy drug addictions, bro, like
Right.
or
Right.
suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm thinking like, damn, like you got this plane, you can, bro, you can go
Right.
to Africa any day and just be a
Right.
king for a weekend, you know? And it's like, damn, like what is wrong with you? And I realized like maybe it's like what you're saying, like, damn, like, okay, so I can see fear led a lot of people into getting a lot of money, but not fulfillment. And now it's
Right.
not working. It's all
That's what and that's the problem with playing the money game with other people,
uh-huh.
right? You're always comparing yourself to what they have and what they, what they're doing. Never play the money game with anybody but
Mm-hmm.
yourself, right?
Right,
That,
right.
that's going to be key. But
Mm-hmm.
the psychology of where you're going, like people think that money is going to be
Mm-hmm.
the goal for them to becoming free.
Mm-hmm.
If your mind isn't free, you'll never be free, no matter how much money you got.
Damn, yeah, man. So that's why I'm glad we having this conversation right now. And I said that in the beginning before we even popped it off. Like everything starts with the mind. Like we may not be able to control everything, you know,
Right.
but we can control ourselves, and that starts with controlling, our mental. And I feel like a lot of times, a lot of people allow comparison, to,
Yeah.
dictate where they are or where they should be at. And I try to
Yeah.
tell people, in my era, and even younger than my era, like I'm a millennial. So like I see a lot of millennials, and no knock to my sisters, but I usually see a lot of my sisters, like basing, their standards off of another sister's standards, and brothers do it too. Brothers do it
Oh yeah.
too,
Yeah.
especially
It's a
yeah,
human thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I would say it's a human thing, overall. And I used to do that too. And I realized like, damn, like every time I compare myself to homie, you know, like out of all this work, all this growth I put in it, it felt like nothing. And then I started listening to more people like yourself,
Mhm.
and even Charlemagne the God would say it all the time. He'll
Yeah.
say comparison is the killer of all dreams.
Oh yeah. All
So
jokes. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so like I want to encourage, people, all millennials, Gen Zers, of course, most people in your era, got it down
Yeah.
pat.
Gen
But yeah,
X.
don't, yeah,
Baby boomer.
yeah,
Yeah.
baby boomers. But honestly, I feel like baby boomers are like the kings and queens of not comparing themselves to other people. You look at them like they in the store, they
Like,
got their coupons.
right. You
They
live
not
long enough.
ashamed. Yeah, they not they.
Listen.
Yeah.
That's true. Because when I was
Uh
younger,
huh.
I cared so much about what other people thought. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So as I got older, I realized it's just the wisdom in life.
Mm-hmm.
You get most of the time you
Mm-hmm.
get this awakening of like what's really important, right?
Right. Right. Right.
What's really important is not what they have, right? Like that's why I love J. Cole's song. Ain't no such thing as a life better than yours, right?
Yeah.
Such thing, you know.
Nah, that's
I
real.
can't name one person on the planet that I would want to trade lives with, right? Because I love being me. And the thing that we
Mm-hmm.
got to get to do is instead of falling in love with their portfolio, right? Fall
Mm-hmm.
in love with who you are, be reintroduced back to your own self, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the goal. So that's why instead of all these sophisticated terms and names or titles, I'll just say, hey, I'm a money, legacy, and life coach. I help
Mm-hmm.
you design, grow, protect your money and legacy
Mm-hmm.
while living an extraordinary life. Because
Mm-hmm.
bro, let's face it, living an
Mm-hmm.
extraordinary life doesn't mean I'm taking all these elaborate trips and I'm doing all that's not really an extraordinary life
Mm-hmm.
because there's a such thing as we talk about wealth, right? We talk about poverty.
Mm-hmm.
So poverty, we talk about the flip side of poverty, or we don't talk about the flip side of
Mm-hmm.
poverty, where it's poverty of the soul, poverty of experiences, right? Poverty of the soul
Mm-hmm.
means that I got so much money, I got so many resources that I don't appreciate any of them. I don't really be present in any of the experiences because it's just money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, just money, and like it doesn't mean anything to you. So what I mean by that is we're looking at poverty as like, oh, okay, that person is a poor mindset.
Right.
But there's people who got a lot of money who have a poor mindset or poverty mindset as well, as poverty of the soul,
Absolutely.
where there's no meaning to everything that they're doing. Life has
Right.
to have meaning because you said it earlier. The
Mm-hmm.
reason why people are ready to off themselves
Mm-hmm.
or they escape because when they talk about drugs and stuff like that, they're trying to escape those lower levels
Mm-hmm.
of frequencies like fear and
Right.
anger and stuff like that. They want to get higher, right?
No, you
So
right. You right, man.
at the end of the day, like, okay, well, how do I fall in love with myself,
Mm-hmm.
understand that
Mm-hmm.
money is just a tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I learn from my experiences so I can make better choices in the
Mm-hmm.
future? Because a lot of people, they're
Mm-hmm.
not taking accountability for themselves and, and where they're
Mm-hmm.
at. Like, be okay with where you're at,
Mm-hmm.
right? It
Yeah.
doesn't mean you got to stay there, but be okay. You can't fix your finances until you face them.
No, that's right, man. And I feel like when it comes to facing the biggest thing that most people struggle with overall, and this is like to me the key ingredient because I still struggle with it myself when it comes to
Yeah.
habits that I'm looking to break or trying to break, every day, and it's discipline, right? So like I want
Hmm.
to ask you, like, as a life coach, money strategists, what strategies can people use to stay disciplined, when it comes to their financial success journey, their journey of getting to that rich life that's for them?
Okay, perfect. So what's helped me out, and I think it helps everybody out, is
Mm-hmm.
becoming self-aware and identifying, saying, "Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
have a problem. I
Mm-hmm.
have a money problem, right? Oh, there's a lot of different things that I need to take into consideration of how I'm thinking, like
Mm-hmm.
stinking think." Bro, the biggest thing that has really changed my life is being self-aware
Right.
of, some of my judgments, some of my insecurities,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some of my comparisons to everybody else in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, like if you really want to become more disciplined, like you can't fix something that you're not aware of. So the first step is really self-awareness. And the second thing that I tell you is observe your thoughts and your feelings. So the reason why I love when you said psychology of money, and we're going to talk about it, because I want people to get in tune with their emotions. Like when
Mm-hmm.
the word money is brought up, what are you feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Because those, now that you start observing those things, now
Mm-hmm.
you're like, wait
Mm-hmm.
a minute. Okay, maybe I got some subconscious habits or programs that I need to take a look at.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so the first step is awareness, and the second thing is really just observing your thoughts and your feelings when it comes to money, because you can change those habits and programs, but
Yeah.
only when you become aware of them.
Right. Now, I like that you say that, man. And I can't remember who did the study, but there is a scientific study where it says more people spend more money on their credit cards because there's literally a specific feeling, like a negative feeling that comes with spending your actual cash. So, but it's not like that when a lot of people spend it on their credit cards because they like, I can do it later. So a lot of
Yeah,
people, get comfortable, with spending imaginary money, and you wonder why we get the report of over
right.
45% of Americans with having less than $1,000 in a bank account for emergencies or living expenses.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, like you definitely hitting it right on the point. And I know we almost up, but I want to touch on a couple of more investment products,
All right.
for just to get people to think about. I want to talk a little bit
Okay.
about evaluating annuities and insurance briefly. So I don't really know anything about annuities. I'm gonna be 100 with you. The
Okay.
furthest I got in the insurance game, was life insurance.
Right.
For the most
Right.
part, and of course, the property and casualty, which I do not like. I would be 100 with you, but,
Hey, that's all
but
right. That's
yeah. But when it comes to annuities and insurance, what should people consider about the stability of annuities and insurance when it comes to planning for long-term financial success, like you were talking about earlier?
Perfect. So, I'm glad you're actually asking this question. So,
Mm-hmm.
annuities could be great. The right
Mm-hmm.
kind of annuities could be great for certain people,
Mm-hmm.
not all,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think the biggest thing. So, me, I'm more of an educating professional. Like I educate you on the risk and the reward. I
Mm-hmm.
educate you on the good and the bad, because a lot of people don't do that. Because they're just most people are just disguised salespeople, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not educators. So with an annuity,
Mm-hmm.
where can that fit in? Like a fixed index annuity could fit in to your portfolio if you want a grip on your money, right? You want
Mm-hmm.
growth, you want a reasonable rate of return, you
Mm-hmm.
want income for life, and you want principal protection,
Mm-hmm.
right? But putting all your money into an annuity, well, it depends on like I always tell people, how we're talking now is just general. Like, there's risk when it comes to putting all your money into an annuity.
Mm-hmm.
There's liquidity risk, right? You have access to the
Mm-hmm.
annuity because, with certain annuities, with certain companies,
Mm-hmm.
you have like a free withdrawal period,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a
Mm-hmm.
free withdrawal percentage. But I'll give you an example. Let's say you had $300,000 to your name and all that is into like an annuity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the challenge is now, what if you need access to 100,000? Well, you're messed up. So when we're designing long-term strategies, well, I should say when I'm working with long-term strategies for my clients, I look at liquidity needs. That's very important, right? I
Mm-hmm.
look at long-term income needs. I look at their risk tolerance, because you got to ask the person a question, especially like you don't just sell anybody an annuity. They got to be a certain age. They got to be of a certain mindset. If they're like, hey, I care more about principal protection over a lot of growth, then it could be a good fit for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and when analyzing any of these products, like I said earlier, it's about knowing your whole financial landscape. Because think about it, that's what happened. Like annuities got a bad rep back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
right? But like as a person who deals with people's finances and somebody who's risk averse, if I put them into into the market, and when I talk about risk averse, I'm talking about like people who don't want to see none of their principal gone. Well, the market ain't good for them, right?
Right.
No matter how much I educate them, right? Because they got this fear instilled in them, like, well, I don't want to see my money go down. I'm like, okay, right? Then maybe this product could be better for you. Let me tell you the good, let me tell you the bad.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I put your money here, and I
Mm-hmm.
recommend not putting all of it there, because if I put it there, there's contingent deferred sales charge, there's surrender charges,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
For certain products.
Mm-hmm.
So now if you need access to a whole lot of money, you're gonna get penalized. So yeah, so it's like I've done some education on annuities so people could really understand what they are.
Okay. Okay. So you talked about earlier diversification.
Yeah.
And I want to touch a little bit on diversification when it comes to psychological comfort, when dealing with cash, or building financial success. We all heard the term. Now, if none of us got any advice, we all heard this from somebody at some
Mhm.
point between the ages of 10 and 25. Let's just say,
Uh,
right? And we all heard the term, don't put all your eggs in one basket,
one
right?
basket. No,
Right?
man.
Right.
I
So
hear that all the time.
yeah, and we also see, a lot of things going up and down. Like you said earlier, you can be
Hmm.
coming into a declining market. You could be coming into a thriving market, right? So I
Right.
want to ask you, when it comes to diversification, how important is diversification when the market is fluctuating?
Oh, I love this. So we get to get back to the sequence of returns, right?
Right.
So when I'm designing portfolios with diversification, because even with the stock portfolios, it's more tactical, right? It's hands on. But I'll give you this example. So let's say, and this is going to be good for people to understand. Let's
Mm-hmm.
say you have diversification. Let's say you have, and this is a hypothetical situation,
Mm-hmm.
y'all. Don't go out
Mm-hmm.
there and try to get all these things. You
Okay.
speak to a professional.
Right.
Let's say you had a fixed index annuity, right? Let's say you had an index universal life policy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you had a traditional IRA, 401k. You have all these things, right, that you've had for 20 years or whatever. So you got money in all of them. So that's diversification, right? You got
Mm-hmm.
some that's the IUL could be for your tax free. supplemental income in retirement. The fixed index annuity could be for principal protection, some growth, reasonable growth, income for life. And then your stock and bond portfolio, it's going to go up and down in the market. So I love this because let's say you retire next year, right? It's a declining market, right? Most people have all their money in the market, right? Up and down, right? So if it's a declining market, and when we talk about the sequence of returns, that's going to affect how long your money lasts. So instead of in a declining market, let's say the market is down 10%, right? And it's your year to take some distributions because you need the money for retirement, right? Instead of going to the stock and bond portfolio, maybe let's tap into the index universal life cash value. Maybe let's tap into the fixed index annuity portfolio because those are zero, right? Zero is very important. When you're in a declining market and you take distributions, that could be damaging to the longevity of your money. So let's say 2 years from now, while you're in retirement, it's a thriving market, right? Well, instead of going to the fixed index annuity or the IUL, let's take some distributions from your stock portfolio because this is a thriving market. And the reason why this is so powerful is because if I take money in declining market, that's going to give me a risk of longevity of my money lasting because I'm taking money in a declining market. So I'm taking more losses. So it gives you the reason why diversification is powerful because it gives that stock and bond portfolio a chance to actually bounce back, right? Bounce back. And while I'm tapping into my other fixed index annuity or indexing strategies. So that's the power of diversification because sequence of returns really make a difference. And a lot of people don't think about that. Like the year from 2000 to 2010, like sequence of returns really mattered in retirement because it's a difference between your money lasting for the rest of your life and there's a difference between your money, you cutting 5-10 years on your money.
Yeah. Damn, that's okay. I like that. And you
I hope it wasn't so
no,
deep, but it's like,
no,
okay, this is down. Let me pull from this source, right?
no, you made
Okay.
sense. You broke it down. It's in depth, but you broke it down. You broke it down thoroughly for the people who paying attention.
Right.
Now you said something, right? And you said it was really important, having those assets in place like stocks, bonds, annuities between 2000 and 2010. And like you said earlier, we coming up in the TikTok age, right? And a lot of people are running towards, like Jay-Z said, the white light, the shiny light, whatever, right? So I want to ask you, do you think different assets like stocks, bonds, annuities can work for everyone regardless if they lack interest?
So again, I like that question, but it's not really about interest. I'll be honest, it's all about what's suitable and what is the best interest of that person. You follow what I'm saying? Like, so that's the beautiful thing about being able to put people in different asset classes, right?
Right. Okay.
Because it goes back to what I said earlier. Like, there's no one perfect investment, and that's the thing. Like people who got into the real estate market before the crash, they're like, real estate is the best thing, right? And for those who don't understand, like, oh, it's a time to buy. But now, when the market, when we have havoc, they're like, oh, this is the worst thing ever.
Boy,
So there's,
what?
right, for some people, right? Because again, like I've had close friends and I had people who had all this real estate portfolio, and in 2008, guess what? They didn't have enough liquidity, right? So as a professional, I'm going to look at your whole landscape, and it's all about saying, okay, and we know there's certain things we got no control over. That's why your mindset is got to be very critical. Your emotional state got to be very important because in crises, instead of staying in fear mode and panic mode, you start to operate in an exploration mode, right? In a navigation mode. Those are sage powers. Like, okay, everybody's in fear. Let me take a deep breath. Let me see what I can do because there's opportunity. There's always a gift and opportunity in a declining market or a crisis. But you can't see it if you're driven by fear. That's why we got to get rid of, like, feel the fear, eliminate it. Let it go from your body so you can make intelligent decisions.
Right. I love that, man. And And of course, like, just to end this conversation off, I got just one more thing. I just want to get some advice for first time investors, first time home
Mhm.
buyers, and I want to ask you this, right? What advice would you give to someone who is considering a big purchase or a big investment in the real estate market, but is
Mhm.
unsure if their current investments are not secure or not?
Okay, perfect. I get a lot of people who come to me.
Hmm.
I think that's why a lot of people do come to me because I look at the whole landscape.
Hmm.
People who are like, "Hey, I'm looking to buy a house. I heard you were an advisor or a professional." So first thing I do is say, "Okay, let's do a financial needs analysis. Let's
Right.
take a look.
Hmm.
Um, let's see what you got, where you're at, right? And
Hmm.
let's see what you were thinking." Because the best thing you could do is like, it's not even advice; it's just good wisdom that you give people, right?
Right, right,
Yeah, so I like that fact that it's like being like a fiduciary, being in the best interest of, okay, well, let's see what you got going on.
right. Hmm.
Okay, you got this going on. You're
Hmm.
looking to get this. How much house you want to buy? And I'm like, okay, your debt to income ratio, you got to work on that.
Hmm.
Um, you don't have enough liquidity. What do you plan on doing after you buy this house? Right? How are
Hmm.
your other investments? Because if and this is I did this with my daughter, just thinking back when she had to do a budget in high school. She's 24 now,
Okay.
and she brought it home from high school, and she was like, "Daddy, take a look." And I was like, I looked at everything. I said, "Baby," I said, "You don't have any life insurance." I said, "Where's the money for savings? Where's the money for long term investments?"
Yeah.
And then I looked at I said, "So this is the car you want to buy?" I said, "You can't buy this car. You can't live in this neighborhood, right?"
Hmm.
And I said, "You can't" means that you can't right now,
No.
right? You got to
Right.
come up with a different plan because all the money, because in high school they give them like a budget. This is how much you make, and you got to go and find out what kind of car you want, where you want to live, and pay rent and all this other stuff. I said, you didn't take into consideration, like an emergency fund, opportunity fund. What if you lose your job, right?
Hmm.
Life
Hmm.
insurance. What if you have a disability? So she was almost like, "Damn, Dad."
Like,
Like,
just
hey,
killed the dreams right then and there, right?
it was Imani. Imani? Like your mom do Michael?
Right, right,
Michael?
right, right, right. Like, mama, call me Spill. She ain't going for it. I
She ain't
like
going
that.
for it.
Uh,
Yeah, so yeah, I like that. And then what they do is we devise a plan. Like,
uh,
okay, all right, so let's break down your money. Okay, this is what you got left over. We're
hmm.
gonna put this into a house fund. I
Hmm.
literally got clients who say we're gonna set up a separate account and
Hmm.
we're gonna put this into a house fund, right?
Hmm.
And as it starts to grow, I say if you got 5, 10 years, we can put it in a stock and bond. Like we can create a portfolio based on the time horizon of 5 years
Hmm.
where it's not really risky, it's not too conservative. But if we got a 5 year plan to buy that house,
Hmm.
we're not gonna keep it in the regular savings account. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yeah,
I love it, man. I love it, man. This has been an amazing episode, amazing conversation. And
yeah.
I hope y'all got a lot out of this episode because I sure as hell did. Talking about the psychology of money. Dre, I really appreciate you, my brother. Uh
Anytime.
yeah,
Man.
man. We gotta link a little bit more, man. Like,
Well,
yeah,
we
yeah,
do,
yeah.
man. I just had the Empower Success Fest, and that
Okay.
that kept that kept us really busy. So
Okay.
our Empower Success Fest deal with 4 pillars: entrepreneurship,
Uh-huh.
generational wealth,
Hmm.
inner wealth and health, and community. So
Okay.
now I'm back, building my financial firm, doing what I love to do best. So,
Uh,
I give away a lot of free information. So people can
right.
actually go to mymoneyandlegacy.com, subscribe for free. And I teach a
Hmm.
lot of things like cash flow
Hmm.
management, debt management, basic estate planning.
Hmm.
I work with a team of CPAs and attorneys. So that's what really helps my clients out too.
Yep. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm also going to drop that link in the description as well. And Dre, before we get out of here, where else can people find you? Social media, websites,
Social media.
etc.
They could join my Money and Legacy community on Facebook. They can also join my Facebook page, or they could follow my personal page because like I like to drop a lot of jewels up there. And Andre Parker on Instagram is Dre Parker WRC, and that's for Wealth Relationship Coach. So Dre Parker WRC, and TikTok. I'm considered Mr. Four Cornerstones, right?
There we
And
go.
people's like, what's that? That's faith, family, fitness, finance. Those are my 4 cornerstones.
I love it. I love it. I love it, man. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like this episode, be sure to like, share, subscribe. Also, follow the Spill Street podcast on Spotify so that way You can listen to this episode on your way to work, back home from work, or even if you're at the gym. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, always remember to spread positivity, information, love, and light. We out. Peace.
Peace.